Welcome to the Build a Mind podcast. I'm Joel Thomas.
And I'm Kalen Folk.
And today we're going to do a dive into the world of hosted mining. I think this is going to be kind of a fun topic because it's kind of the bridge between solo mining and industrial mining. And I feel like it's kind of the place where if you're mining at home and doing some solo lottery mining, and then you want to turn actual, like get some actual Bitcoin in your wallets and start pool mining and things like that. But you don't have the power or the infrastructure or anything set up at home. You don't want to deal with the noise because your spouse will kill you in the middle of your sleep. That's where hosted mining is kind of a cool option. So we're going to talk about that here in a second, but a quick word from our sponsors. The Build a Mind podcast is brought to you by PowerProfitBTC.com. If you control excess or stranded power and you're wondering if Bitcoin mining actually fits, go run the tools at PowerProfitBTC.com. It's built to help you sanity check economics and feasibility before you spend real money. That's PowerProfitBTC.com. And the Build a Mind podcast is also brought to you by MiningInvestmentSim.com. Before you go buy miners or sign a hosting deal, run the numbers at MiningInvestmentSim.com. It's a mining investment simulator that helps you see how sensitive your outcome is to assumptions like power, uptime, and network conditions. That's MiningInvestmentSim.com. Now, of course, if you want to learn more about Bitcoin mining, we have some excellent Telegram groups over at the Bitcoin Mining World Telegram channels group. We're flashing some stuff on the screen, but make sure you hit those QRs and come hang out and talk shop with us.
Yes, sir.
Kalen, how you feeling today? I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, feeling pretty good, man. Feeling pretty good. We've got a really interesting topic on our hands today. Coming at it from kind of a different perspective. You actually have miners out hosted at some sites, and it's not a huge sum, but a couple hundred kilowatts. If we're dealing with that, I'm coming from it from a site operator perspective. We've always had kind of a minimum hosted deployment of about 1 megawatt to 2 megawatts. And right now we only have one large client. So I'm curious to hear what that process is like when you're shipping your own miners off to a hosted site. Are you buying them, shipping them straight over? Why did you go with hosting instead of building out a layout at home?
Sure. Okay. Great question. We can start there. So just to set the record straight, I'm doing about a petahash, a little bit over. Okay. So I've got like 3 270s and a 200. So I'm right over a petahash. Petahash. I don't know how you pronounce it. I don't care.
Okay. No. So that's even more kind of like what our viewers would be looking to do more than likely, just shipping off a few miners. And I've never worked at a site that allows clients to just send a couple miners. And I've always thought that would be a huge pain, trying to keep the different clients separate. If everybody's sending their own replacement parts, like how keeping all of that separate and the ticketing system like that must be wild. So I'm curious what it looks like when one of your machines goes down, but we'll hit that later.
You have to set the business up that way. I think, because doing one large host, obviously that's one relationship to manage, but as you scale, now you have a bunch of people that come in, they're like, I want to just buy one machine. So okay, so to answer your question, let me go back so people understand what I have. And okay, so what made me want to go with hosted is I was literally sitting there going down my rabbit hole. I think I probably invested 400 hours of my time into Bitcoin last year. How it is, like about a year and a half ago, I hit my full maxi stride. I've been into Bitcoin for a long time, and I was thinking like, wow, how does mining work? I want to understand this. And then I started watching every possible video on YouTube, and like a true nerd, you just get engrossed in it and you go down the rabbit hole and you're like, dude, this is cool. Like, and then you're like, well, I believe in the Bitcoin network, forget the money. I just want to do this to support the network and like be part of this. This is awesome. So maybe that's kind of a crazy assumption for people. But like I said, different age groups, like if you're in your early 20s and you just got your first job or something like that, you don't have a lot of disposable income. It's much different than if you're in your 30s or in your 40s. Not that you have a ton of disposable income. Your wife will spend all of it, but
there you go.
Especially on your children. But like, you have some money and it's like, all right, do I want to go out to the restaurants and, maybe take a light vacation, or can I go buy a bunch of Bitcoin miners? You know what I mean? And you make those trade-offs in your life. So, I had a little bit of disposable to play with, and I was like, how can I go dip my toe in the pond? So I came across a bunch of different hosting mining companies after watching some of the YouTubers go down the rabbit hole. Because I like that, because like, where do you start, right? The risk factors really stressed me out. It was like the whole idea of, if I give somebody, let's say, $5,000 to buy a machine, what if it goes down? What if that site gets, what if they go out of business? What if electric, what do you call it? Like a lightning bolt strikes a site, or, I start thinking like a business person and going through all the risk analysis. I'm like, can I take out insurance on this? And, I start going crazy. But the fact that I had looked at a couple of places, I'm like, okay, well, obviously these YouTubers are probably getting kickbacks, because I know a lot of YouTube people and I know how the YouTube game works. They're getting kickbacks from these sites. But if somebody's hosted their miners there for 3 years, and I like that person, and I think they put out good content, and I feel like they're trustworthy, I'm like, okay, I'll take that risk on. I think that's instead of just me calling some random, mom and pop shop that's claiming to run a Bitcoin operation and sending them a, so again, I was like, dip the toe in first into the water, make sure you're not going to get burned or frozen. And then once we know the water is like lukewarm and we're not going to do that, then let's get the whole body in the bathtub. So I kind of, I went with a company called Musk Miners, and they're hosting in Iowa. And again, there's a lot of really great ones out there. And I've actually, we could talk about this later, but I've called every single hosted place in the country just to do my own research before I kind of got into this. But
and that's one thing I want to point out. Yeah, sticking countryside, I haven't heard any like crazy horror stories of sites getting shut down. I mean, here, if it's stateside, it's easy to settle things in the courts, right? The horror stories come when you're sending your miners off into these like obscure countries, the size of Texas, and it's like, if a site goes down like that, I've heard of people not getting their miners back for like 8-9 months. By that time, they're barely profitable, and depending on where you're at in the cycle. So I think sticking stateside was definitely a good decision. But so yeah, why'd you go with them specifically opposed to the rest?
Well, I like that they're in Iowa and I'm in Wisconsin. So for me, it's easy to get in my car, and I know I can drive there in like 4 to 6 hours and go touch it if I need to. So if anything hit the fan, I could just show up and unplug them myself if I can get through security.
Yep.
So I like that, first and foremost. Second off, stateside, right? Like geopolitical risk. I don't want to be in a place where like a revolution could just spring up and, everything gets confiscated or whatever. I mean, anything wild could happen in the world. And, that's a serious thing to think about. So I like that I can send a demand letter, or there's a hosting agreement, or there's at least some kind of legal protection. And like I said, at the end of the day, I can get in the car and go and reclaim my asset from this place and then figure out what to do later. So, there's multiple stages of backup, even though, some people think Bitcoin mining is like this crazy risk. I don't know. I don't think about it like that. I kind of think about it as everything has risk. You either, it's like a diversification of your risk, so is it better to buy Bitcoin or to buy it? Well, it depends on the market conditions, and there's market conditions where you could argue both. Right now, it's the prices are down. You've been right with the bear market. So it's probably, it's given the hash rate, it's probably better to buy it right now. But that being said,
it's also better to buy miners. Yeah. You can buy latest gen hardware. I mean, you can buy S21 vanilla 200T for under $1,000 now. A year and a half ago, they were selling for $5,000.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
that's what I paid.
It's a good time to get into the newer gen hardware.
For sure. So that's why I kind of chose Musk, because it was like, I didn't know anything about this. It seemed trustworthy. I called up the CEO. I talked to him on the phone. I like that. That to me is important, because I get it. After a certain scale, you can't talk to the owner. But I think about like some of the businesses that I own. If somebody has a problem, they reach out to me. I handle it directly, and I like that, because there's a whole like bureaucracy layer. Like you have a problem with like say AT&T, you're going to get kicked to some level 1 CS rep, and you can't get anything resolved, man. It's impossible. So I like that I can text the guy and be like, hey, what the hell, if something were to go wrong, and that makes me sleep a little bit better at night. Okay. So that's why I went that route, and that's why I picked the host that I did.
Did you purchase the miners directly from them? Okay.
This is a great question. Okay. So some hosted sites, and again, there's a lot of these, there's Musk Miners. There's, oh my God, why is my brain not working? It's early. And
Compass.
I should have, Compass. Compass has got a great operation. Abundant. There's Simple Mining has a really, really impressive operation over there. There's a couple more, but they're all, you know, the major ones I feel like are well established, and you're going to lower your risk.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, keeping this going, like, yeah, you went with the hosted route. Why did you go with the hosted route opposed to just getting the setup going at home, though?
I forgot to ask that. Sorry, to answer that, because my wife would murder me in my sleep. You know, I already got 3 loud kids as it is, dude. I can only imagine having a machine in the basement. I mean, I have like I do home mining and like lottery mining, but that's different. You don't hear it. It's kind of in the basement, out of the way. It doesn't, like, you know, you're not.
Yeah, and they do make the better fans you see for those like S19, S21 Slim setups that are out
Yeah.
there, the sub 3 card setups. Now, luckily, with Luxor just put out a new update. I've been playing around with it quite a bit, with a PSU bypass that
Really?
makes home mining at a slightly larger scale quite a bit easier. You can go buy a S9 power supply now without the need of a Loki kit, hook that up, and you can run all 3 boards of an S19. You underclock it, you get like about 40 terahash for 1200 watts. You know, it's not the most efficient rig, but if you need a little heater, you can spend that extra money. Can't remember what the fans are called. I believe they start with an N, but they're like 20 bucks a piece, but they're almost silent compared to like what you think of when you think Bitcoin miner. But I was thinking your answer was mainly just going to be electrical power rates.
I
Like
mean,
just
I was gonna just say that because I think I'm over 18 cents here. It's
18.
expensive. Where Iowa,
Wow.
I'm paying like 8 cents, and if you get a certain amount of miners, that goes down to like 7.5 or 7. And a lot of the places, you know, like for example, Compass, if you've got enough volume with them, that you can get your power rate on a hosted thing at 7. Now,
Mhm.
obviously, that's nothing like building a container, dropping $20 million
Yep.
in a greenfield site, pulling up your pants like a big boy. But you know, if you want to kind of, like I said, jump in the bathwater. Like I did one miner for like a week, and then I'm like, okay, this is awesome. And then I pulled out the card and swiped and, you know, added
Mhm.
another like
S
massive
so
amount.
these were already sitting on the shelf hashing. So it's like as soon as you purchase it, how is your
There's an
access
order
work?
leg. So basically,
Okay.
some companies you have to order through them. And then there's other ones like Black Ops, who also runs a great operation where you can bring in your stuff to them, which is cool, and they'll just.
Nice.
So I think that's really cool. But like Musk, particular, you have to buy it through them because they give you a little bit of a markup. Obviously, you and I, because we work on
Mhm.
the backside of this with Bitcoin mining world, we know how much we can get these miners for versus what
Yeah.
people are selling. So they definitely have a markup, but again, this was my introduction to hosted. So now
For
I
sure.
might do things a little bit differently, but I'm happy with the choices I made when I made it.
Was there any type of warranty set up for them at all?
1 year, which just expired, and you need the warranty because, man, if there's one thing that will go down, it's a fan cooled 270.
Mhm.
You know, when they had that thing in Iowa, or when that huge snowstorm we had like what 2 months
Yep.
ago,
Yeah.
dude, it took out 3 of my miners, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what you guys are doing on your shutdown side or whatever, but we've talked about this on this show
Mhm.
before. They're doing something wrong over there, in my opinion, because you know, you shouldn't burn them all out like that. So regardless, I still have one down, which is really pissing me off at these prices.
Right?
So I really want that extra, you know, to get more Bitcoin at this cost basis. But hey, you know, I mean, it's part
So
of mining.
So yeah, that was kind of my next question going into the repair side of things. So we have like every miner needs to be addressed within a 48-hour period on our site. Like that's kind of just a base rule within the hosted contract. It's like, hey, if a miner's down, there will at least be a ticket created for it, or something classifying what the repair is, what parts we need. If we don't have them yet, we need to reach out to the client. So how are you notified? Are you logging in somewhere to check it? What does it look like when one of your miners goes down? What's the next step to get it
This is
back
a
up and
great
going?
question. And this really what impressed me with like simple mining, the way that they have this set up, because they have like automated everything and an entire system in place. And I know you were telling me you got some crazy software stuff that does this.
Yeah.
I'm doing this the manual way. So I log into my app 5 times a day like a psycho OCD person. And I mean, I just like looking at it, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's like a video game. You know, you're watching it go up and you're
Mhm.
increasing your score, but it's actual Bitcoin. And you know, you feel your sovereignty meter in the game is just going up. So
Mhm.
um every time it's down, usually I'm like, I have to email in because they don't notify or tell you. They're like, oh yeah, we know now. Before that, you had to notify them. And then I feel like if I don't pound them on support, like, hey, what's going on? And I got to give the team over their credit. They are really great and really responsive. But what I don't like is that I don't get notifications. A simple automated, hey, your thing is down. We're investigating. We'll get back to you in 12 hours. And then it updates the ticket. Like there's no Zendesk or whatever, you would use in mining customer support. I don't know what the software would be. And that's my biggest complaint about it. It drives me insane because I'm like, hey, my thing's been down for, you said 3 weeks. It's been down for 2 months. What's going on? Oh, this and this and this and this happening. I'm like, okay, cool. We're waiting for a hashboard replacement. Thank you. But you could have told me.
And yeah, that's the thing. So on a host, even if I'm just going to assume, say you spent 5,000 on one of those units, right? To get it up and going, that close to they're getting their markup from it. But then you've got that 1-year warranty. The hostee may not be super thrilled when a hashboard goes down. For they're having to replace a $1,400 card for you for free. Or if I don't know if they have a repair shop set up there. I know personally, we don't do any board repair on site. It's like we'll pull it and ship it off to a board repair, charge the customer. They can choose whoever they want where we send it off to. But I was curious how that would work, because a simple fan change, like, do you send them any fans in bulk? Like
they do everything there. They have repairing. If they get like a serious thing where like, hey, we had 200 machines go down with this massive, storm that came through. We got a Bitmain tech coming in for the next week, and we're going to try to pound out as many of these as we can. So,
that makes sense.
Yeah. I've noticed calling around that every operation is run differently, and I'm hoping we can get some of these mining operators on, because I think that would be really interesting to see how they like to operate. Because again, just talking to people on the phone and kind of going through that initial like discovery call of, hey, I have this much, how do you operate? What happens if this, what happens with that? What do you offer versus this or that? It's really, really fascinating. And there's a lot of differences out there. And, some people are better at running operations than others. And again, you spend a year with a hosted miner, you're going to find everything you like and you dislike. But I think that's true anywhere. Like no situation is going to be perfect, right? It's like,
for sure,
it doesn't matter how good something sounds in a sales pitch. At the end of the day, there's probably things, because like, I mean, again, also standing at the last conference, I met people that have hosted with XYZ, pick a name miner, and everybody had good things and bad things to say about everyone. So it's kind of just like nothing is going to be perfect, right?
Yeah. It all comes down to personal experience. I mean, I definitely get that too out at the conventions with just the firmware that I like. I prefer Luxor firmware from a operator perspective. And there's tons of horror stories from back in the day with firmware causing issues with miners. And it's like, I've ran it on upwards of 10,000 machines for years, and I've never had any miners blow up. It's like, this is the only firmware where I haven't had this issue on. And then other people swear by it, that it's just the most problematic. So it really comes down user settings as well. But going into firmware a fan going down, knocking out your machine for 2 months, do they allow you to install custom firmware?
I have no idea. Again, as on a hosting agreement, you're basically just saying you buy the machine, you pay X amount in power. So for like a 270, it's probably like $208 a month, a fixed rate hosting, and then any downtime is credited. So that at least I like. If your machine goes down, they credit it, which is great. But again, here's another discrepancy is I'm a crazy business person and I'm a money manager. So I count pennies. And because I'm crazy, like I'm like, hey, I don't think this was credited properly. And then they go back and so I got them once where they were a little sloppy on that. I'm like, guys, please don't do that again. You can't do that to me. Like, not saying that they do, or I mean, people make mistakes, but I was like, hey, you forgot
a few couple days.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know. You get a report at the end of the month, and it allows you to, and then you get the pool mining report. Now, that is also something that's interesting. Is sometimes these hosted places have deals with these pools, and you've gone around at the conferences and seen the range of fees that pools. That might be something interesting to talk about, but I don't want to totally derail myself, because I was saying that. Hold on, I lost my train of thought. What were we talking about a second ago?
let's just dive into the pull factor.
Okay.
You got me going with there. So yeah, like a lot of hosted sites do have these deals set up with pools where, yeah, if you're shipping 2-3 megawatts out there, you have to use their pool. And then they've got a deal with the pool where they're getting an extra percent and a half of your hash rate. And then if that's something you're not taking into account, maybe they're on the higher side already. Like, are they already charging 8.5 cents, and then also getting a percent of your hash rate from the pool side as well? They're definitely something to look out for. What is that operation like? Do you have control to change your pools whenever you
Yeah,
want?
of course. And what's cool, so the one I'm using is Power Pool, and I would probably be using Ocean. I know we all love Ocean on
Mhm.
here, but the rate I'm getting at Power Pool with Musk destroys every other offer. And believe me, I've talked to every pool person
Yeah.
who owns every pool directly, and I'm like, hey, here's what I've got, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, well, I can offer you this. So people are like, yeah, 4%, 2.5%.
Mhm.
And I'm like, look, I'm getting less than 1%. I'm getting a 0.9% fee, which,
That's huge. I'd
yeah,
imagine the site has something set up with the pool where they can get those bulk deal prices set up,
totally.
split across a whole bunch of clients. I mean, and that's an awesome thing for a hosted site to be able to offer to the small players, and it helps with, like, 8 cents is a little bit on the high side, I'd say. But it makes sense from a, you're not going to find much better if you're just trying to send out like 10 5 to 10 miners. You probably aren't going to find a better
No,
rate,
no
but
way.
it is on the higher side for just your break even on the day. So getting that fee down goes a long ways to supplement that. So I mean, that makes that site specifically a lot more enticing.
Yeah, it's a really good setup. And because I'm thinking, like, if it wasn't for that, I would definitely be ripping Ocean, because I
Hmm.
believe in like the ethos over there, and what it means for like network diversity. But like, one thing I did check is, I was like, okay, is this like a Bitmain proxy? And I had talked to Scott Offord, because Scott's really, really
Hmm.
entrenched in the game here. And he was like, yeah, here's some things you can ask, and this and this and that. And I did a bunch of deep dives in like AI, and it seemed like they were an independent pool. So I like that, because at least I feel like my hash rate is not going to some
Yep.
Chinese pool, like Bitmain. So I like that a lot.
100%. So when you were calling around, looking at these different places, running the numbers, what was your timeline expected to break even? How were you looking at this? What was your thought process? Why did you, besides just the Bitcoin maxi wanting to secure the hash rate? Why those miners? What were you looking at?
Sure. My own philosophy on how I'm approaching mining is different than, I think, how somebody would approach large scale mining, because um I think that I don't sell the Bitcoin. I'm here to accumulate it. So mine is just a pure play accumulation strategy. I'm never going to sell the Bitcoin ever.
Mhm.
And it will step up cost basis and go through a network of trusts and things like that through my estate to my children when I'm off this planet. And if I told them, if they ever sell my Bitcoin, I will rise from the grave and I will
Coming back.
haunt them until they're
Yeah,
off this planet. So
it's awesome.
so the way I look at it is like this. I tried to find an amount of money that I could spend every month in terms of hosting where it wasn't going to, affect my lifestyle, because, I mean, there's a certain amount of money I'm normally used to spending in business loans for equipment in one of my other
Mm.
businesses. And I've paid off all of my equipment over there. And I'm like, well, I could take on, another $1,000 a month, like liability, no problem. But to me, it's like, it's kind of like the ultimate DCA into Bitcoin, but with tax advantages.
Yep.
So again, there are market conditions where it's favorable to mine, and there are market conditions where it's not. Regardless, I like that you're always going and buying every second of every day, regardless of how you feel or how much dry powder you have in your bank account or what's going on in the world. That bill shows up, you pay the damn thing, and
Hmm.
you're getting the Bitcoin. So I could sell it at any given point in time, but I kind of look at it like this. I've decided that this is, like I said, a pure play accumulation strategy for me. I also buy Bitcoin, right? When the price is good, it's
Hmm.
like, oh, it just dropped, like, what are we at, like 65,000? So
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
get
They're down.
paid from one of my clients so I can go take a swing,
Mhm.
but like, So I kind of look at it like that. So for me, the way I'll calculate it, and I know we've talked about this before, is I do a strictly future value calculation because I can swing the out of pocket cost and I haven't over leveraged myself, or I have to
Yep.
sell a certain part of my Bitcoin every month or else I'm losing my butt. I've been able to set it up where I think about like, okay, let's say like Sailors, right, with his predictions, or even if we were to go conservative and say
Mhm.
Bitcoin at some point in the next 20 years is going to go to $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay, which to me I think is 100% guaranteed bet.
Yeah, that's, hard to argue against.
But I'm more like, dude, I think it's going to be 10 million or more. And I mean, I know there's people that are even 5x that, and to me that's probably wild. But again, I'm not an analyst. No one
Mhm.
really knows what's going to happen. I don't want to try to predict anything, but I do
Sure.
believe that we're going to be at least $1 million. So I try to calculate with $1 million base price is like, okay, if I'm doing this, maybe today I've mined $40 with the Bitcoin, in terms of fiat, but the future value of that would be like, if it's a $13 million price, like say Sailor's right, or well, I mean, now
Mhm.
he upped it to 21 and 21, but let's just say, it's like, dude, now I've mined like $5,000 today, or $4,000 to
Mhm.
$5,000. So I kind of think about it like that. I'm like, I'm getting future value of like a couple grand a day for what I'm putting in now. So to me, that's just such an asymmetric bet. I'm like, I will stomach it. I will take on miners as I can, but I'm not going to over leverage myself. And at some point, if I've got a lot of dry powder, I would then accelerate. And we talked about this on
Mhm.
the finance one that you and I did, but I would accelerate into a point where I would have to sell some of the Bitcoin and keep some of the profit there. But like I said, I would definitely build a certain buffer where it's like,
For sure.
regardless, I can handle the payment to some extent. So that way you're not kind of out on your butt in a situation where Bitcoin drops by 30,000 and the hash rate stays the same. And, the
Mhm.
miner becomes unprofitable, say in a year from now.
No, for sure. Yeah, and setting it up like yeah, not getting set up into a crazy long-term contract with the hosted client, and then
Yeah, they're
setting
one
up
year, and you can always turn them off, which is cool. You can be like, "Oh,
that's
but
huge.
I'm not making money. Turn it off." And you get. I'd have to look at my agreement, but and I've looked at everybody's agreements. But most
Mhm.
of these places, you can have periods where you can just be like, "Shut my miner off for the next 3 months," and they're not going to bill you for it.
Yeah, no, that's really not we just had a client shut off some of their older gen hardware. They wanted to shut off a couple hundred of them. Yeah, check contract. They can. It's like, all right, let's go put them to sleep, unplug them. And yeah, not being over leveraged, I think, is a really big big thing to focus on. If you can stomach the power cost each month, and you have this long term mindset, it's like even if you don't want to go to that extreme of a number, I mean, even if you want to go to a $200,000 Bitcoin, it's like, yeah, what does that look like if you're mining 45 bucks a day at 60? I mean, you're actually mining close to 120. I mean, that over a year, you're getting to your ROI a lot. I wouldn't say faster, but you're getting there. That's how you can break even on these machines.
When I did the
Um,
math, it was like, when we were at like let's just say 80,000, right? When I started
mhm,
buying miners, I kind of looked at the math. I'm like, if the price stays the same for 4 years, the machine with the current math would have broken even. So I'm like, okay, in 4 years, I'll get my money back. Then I'm like, okay, well, I bought this on 0% 18-month financing on credit. So I can just
mhm,
pay this down again, out of pocket and get the tax
yep,
advantage upfront last year, which really helped. And if I reach a point where I'm like, well, I still have money on the credit card, I can just do a balance transfer for a small fee, and then I can kick
mhm,
it down another 18 months. And I can just let inflation eat away and erode the debt like the United States does. So, that's which I'm probably going to have to do. I paid off some of the hardware bill, and I've been
mhm.
chipping away at it, when it's convenient, because when you're in business, you have months where you're up
Ups
and
and
months where you're
downs.
down, and there's
And
different
if it's
things
at
that
0%, if the card's at
yeah.
0%, there's not a huge rush on it.
So
You
you
can
just
wait
go
for those
get
good
balance
months.
transfer, and you again, you don't want to over leverage, but at the same time, when the prices are low, you do have to be aggressive and sacrifice a little bit, I believe. So um,
For sure.
those are my economics. Now, obviously, if somebody's buying and selling every month, that changes the economics
Mhm.
substantially. But again, that's the kind of thing where it's like if you have a certain amount of dry powder, you can keep putting in and keep chipping away. I'm like, all right, I'm going to add a new miner. So, this year my goal is to add one of these like 473 hydro miners, like see
Nice.
if I can get like one or two of those. But
These things are beautiful.
Yeah, like I don't think they're gonna break as much. But again, you see you
Mhm.
start building it because you're like, all
Uh,
right, well now that's a $300 a month power cost as opposed to a 200, but it's twice the terahash and it's
I
probably
was
gonna
just
break down less.
talking to somebody that's got a 10 meg farm of those hydro units, the 800 terahash ones,
Woo.
and he's just like, they don't break. He's like, they don't break. It's great. We have one person staffed for 10 megawatts, and he's just there to mess with the pumps every week. He's like,
Wow.
yeah, sometimes a pump needs to be adjusted a little bit, but he's like, no, they just don't break. He's like, keep your dry filters clean. I've wanted to get into the hydro scene a lot. I know hosted, or if you want to host your hydro miners, you're paying a premium because the setup cost for a hydro setup or an immersion is much more costly upfront wise compared to an air cooled deployment.
I have some
But
intel on this actually.
let's
Again,
hear
I
it.
called everybody and I was like, hey, there's a race right now with these major hosts who build out hydro
Yep.
hosting space. They can't keep up with the demand. At least they couldn't when I talked to them. Again, the market conditions were
Hmm.
we were closer to an all-time high then. But a lot of these people, they're like, yeah, we're not going to have any hydro until, we're going to have 20 megawatts come online in June or September, or, so they're trying to get it done. But again, it's a lot of infrastructure, as you know.
It is.
So, I'm trying to like, I know also the hydro will come down a little bit, or they'll come out with a next gen hydro that'll
Hmm.
be even more efficient. And, by then, so, again, it's one of those things where if you don't have millions of dollars to just go spray, like you can kind of just, you
Yeah.
can take it one machine at a time. And that's what's beautiful is like, if you're at home mining and you're doing solo and you're like, all right, well, I'm going to go buy a 270 and have it
Hmm.
hosted. And, it's a couple $1,000 swing and, it's $200 a month in power. So it's like, why not?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know people that have a large industrial rig, like S19, S21 series air cooled out at a hosted facility, and they're just solo mining with it. Eating that $200 a month is their lottery tickets that they would be buying up at the gas station. Except for it's a much better chance at winning the
Yeah.
lottery. Um, but you said something interesting when you talked about purchasing that miner last year with just the tax benefit on when you purchased it. How did you set up did you set up an entity? Did you set up like an LLC for this? What tax breaks? What advantages? Go more into the magic that you work over on that side of things.
Okay, this is a great question. I'm very lucky because I have an accountant that actually understands this stuff and is into like DeFi and so
That
you have
that
to,
is lucky.
yeah, you got to find an accountant that gets it. That's the thing about being a business owner. And I don't want to go off on a side quest here, but this is important for anybody that runs a company. If you have like a manufacturing company or something that's really like traditional, most accountants can handle that. If you do like online stuff, like I do a lot of, and you've got international payments and partners and all kinds of stuff, it like most people, they'll just throw up their hands or like, just give me like a local manufacturing company. I don't know how to handle sales tax and, all these different
Yeah.
jurisdictions, and it gets insane. So, I asked my accountant, I was like, how do we set this up? And he's like, okay, there's two ways we could run it. We could run it as an LLC, to limit your liability, but you only really have a couple of machines and you're keeping the Bitcoin, you're not selling it. And he's like, or we could just put it, hold on, I'm not an accountant. I think it's Schedule C. They could like itemize it and you could run it as like a sole proprietor business essentially. So, you can set up a liability shield for it. So the pros and cons are this: if you set up an LLC, you have asset protection. So you have the hosting agreement. But again, if you have a couple of machines, it's like, you're probably not going to sue somebody over like
Hmm.
20 grand. You're just not. I mean, you can write 5 letters with a lawyer and burn 20 grand in like a few weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
really, you're not going to sue somebody unless you have mega, mega money online. Everybody likes to use that word and like swing it around all the time, but they don't know what they're
Hmm.
talking about. Like if if you run businesses and you've been through any type of legal stuff, that, so you're like, okay, well, what kind of asset protection do I need? Do I need to get insurance on this? And boy, it's really complicated. Like, yeah, I created an LLC with the state and a separate bank account and I got an EIN and I'm running it as a business, but you could also do it through your personal stuff. You would just basically create a separate bank account, and treat it, you don't commingle your assets when you're doing this. You put your money in, you track it as an owner investment in terms of accounting. You pay through, you get a credit card through that's linked to that. You keep your stuff separate, just like you would a business, and then you run it. You have clean records. When you take the money out and put it in your personal account, it would be a draw if you were to sell your Bitcoin. So, because yeah, you do have to pay tax on cost basis. So the way that mining works is that, let's just say we mine the equivalent of $20 worth of Bitcoin this month, or here $200 this month, right? And you got one machine going. So what's going to happen is you're liable now at the current price. That $200 is your cost basis to the IRS. So you pay taxes on that regardless if you sell it or not. And then when you go to sell it, depending on the holding period, it's either 12 months, it's a capital gain. So 12 months in a day, so over a year, it's a capital gain, which is capital gains rate. Or before that, it's at income tax rate, which really, really, really sucks. So again, this is the kind of the got you of mining, where it's like, if you're selling every month or every week, there's that income tax, you got to pay income tax twice on that spread. And that's, at least if I understand it correctly, like that sucks. But if you can hold for a year, that's a totally different ballgame. So that's why I've chose to hold it indefinitely. Now, the cool thing is you can write everything off. So regardless of whether you're doing it through an LLC or you're doing it on your personal tax return and it's itemized or whatever, again, there's no real difference other than you have a little bit of extra liability protection on the LLC. And like I said, you'd be doing your hosting agreement through the company. Because if the way to think about it, Kaylin, would be like this: you and I are individuals. If we created a company together, that company is its own individual, right? So now it transacts and does business. And if somebody wants to come after you or me, or that we have a dispute over a hosting agreement and we get into a litigation or something like that, they're going after that entity. They're not coming after me and you personally. Does that make sense? And if you want to really get gangster, you can create holding companies in Wyoming. I mean, asset protection and that stuff gets insane, and trusts and all those things like that. But the point is like, you have an LLC that operates, and then you could have it owned by a holding company and then owned by a trust. And that's really damn hard to break in a situation, especially if the LLC doesn't, it doesn't really own much in assets or keep it much in assets on the books. The operating company, it goes to the holding company, and it's like a Wyoming one with charging order protection. Like that's really hard to break.
And so, I mean, that's a good thing to get set up. But you talked about you can write off everything. So
yes.
When you say everything, what are we talking about? Are we talking about depreciating the miners? Can you write off the power bill? What does that actually look like at the end of the year? Because like you said, you're earning $45 a day in Bitcoin,
right?
Added up over a month. You're looking, and that's all counted as excess income.
Sure. Okay.
Break that down a little bit more for us.
Okay. In the hosting world, it works like this. You have your power, maintenance, upkeep, whatever hosting fee every month. So let's say one S270 is like, say, $213 a month. And that's what you pay every month by contract. And of course, that may or may not fluctuate, or, it just depends. But so far, I've only watched that go up like $10 a month on some machines over, as you buy new miners and things like that.
Yeah.
So you pay that, you can write that off because that's your electricity. That's if a miner goes down, if there's a repair, you write them a check. They basically, you write all of that stuff up. The other thing is when you buy the miner itself, you don't depreciate it anymore because they have the accelerated depreciation. You can take all of that in year one. So let's just say I went and swiped 30 grand on an Amex. You can write off all $30,000 this year with the new BBB tax provisions. So last year I wrote off the full cost of the miners to offset some income I had in other businesses, and which was badass because again, hopefully, depending on where you are, that can help keep you in certain tax breaks, brackets as you progress up. And help, keep you from getting, absorbing that extra tax liability. So yeah, you can write everything off, dude. The machine, the repairs, the maintenance, the power, any legitimate business expense. You would just be, the onus would be on you to prove it to the IRS in an audit that it is a legitimate business expense. So keep your receipts, keep your accounts separated, and make sure that you take your accounts. And like I said, you don't commingle your funds.
Yeah, I think the commingling funds is where most people end up getting hit in these types of things, just not having the understanding of like, hey, this is the entity's money. This is not my money. If I want to do this as my money, then that's income tax on me as well at that point, right? So you're having to pay yourself out of your company's account.
Right.
But when you were, that's those more favorable conditions that you were talking about. you know, that's when Bitcoin mining looks more favorable. When you're getting into those write-offs, say you already have all this other excess income coming in from a side project or even just your day job. You know, say you're a higher earner, and you owe 30, 40 grand in taxes a year. It's like, why not spend something up on the side, right? Like, what
Totally.
when you're looking at like risk management, where is your brain going for a hosted op?
Well, like I said last time, if you think about, and anybody watching this, we did a really great one on using Bitcoin mining in retirement, and we went through all these different strategies like zero tax and all these things.
And we'll throw that episode down in the description up top. That's definitely one that fits more into this conversation if you want some more
But like
in depth on it.
one thing that is interesting is like, because income is progressively taxed. So like, let's say there's a point where you go from like the 24 to or I'd have to look at the brackets because it just changed or they locked them in, but I don't
Is
I
it
don't remember if
24 to like right
is
under
it 32
50?
or is there a 28% bracket? I don't remember. But either way, let's just say you've got a 4% jump. So let's say you get to a certain income threshold. And then after that, now you're going to pay an extra 5% tax, right? So
Mhm.
what you can do is you can say, hey, you know, if you're going to make, say, 50 grand over that, you know, you're going to pay X amount on taxes over that. And that's going to get taxed at, say, like 32%. Well,
Mhm.
shit, you could go and spend that 50 grand and on Bitcoin miners and then not pay all that tax, write all of that off. And now you're converting that tax you would pay um, into, you know, you're converting your fiat into Bitcoin, which so there's, you know, if you're a crazy person like us who believes in this in the maxi world, there's an
Mhm.
arbitrage there. So there's definitely a world where you can keep your income, I would say, artificially down by just investing in Bitcoin mining and, you know, perpetually doing that and creating like a reflexive loop. But again, that's a whole my brain is not, it's too early and my brain is not ready to
Mhm.
handle the math on that this early because I just not
Hey, no, understandable. I'm with you there, man. Fighting through it. Comparing the home mining to the hosted mining, like who do you think who should stay home miner? Who should make that jump up into the industrial level? Like, what should somebody look for before making that first step?
okay, some people are really good at teching. Like, for example, you know how to do all this stuff. It's your day job, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't open a board on a thing and a miner and know what my head from my
Hmm.
backside is. Like, you know, I couldn't, maybe I could replace a fan. I don't know. I'd have to watch it. You'd have to see somebody do it. I couldn't
For
build a
sure.
shed in my backyard, you know, like I'm not a dude who swings a hammer. What I am good at is marketing stuff on the internet. So it's kind of just like I can spend my time doing what I'm good at, or I can just hire somebody to do it. So for me,
Hmm.
for somebody like me, where your time is at a premium and it's the most expensive thing, and you are just maxing out and redlining all the time, hosting is the way to go. Now, if you are DIY and you're tech savvy and you know how to fix this stuff, you have access to affordable power, like maybe you've got
Hmm.
a solar setup in your backyard or something cool, right? Or you know, you live in a state where you can get 8 cents or whatever, you know, that is definitely a person that should probably do it at home. And, you know, because you can scale. Like, for example, there's these people like Vosk Coin on the internet that do this stuff. And, you know, it's perfect for them because it's like, it doesn't even phase these guys. Oh, I'm going to build a shed and drop in an immersion miner and I'm
Hmm.
going to repair my board. And I'm just like, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah, yeah, and his power rate isn't the best either. I think he's sitting at like 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So starting, I mean, power rate's not everything. If you're buying efficient hardware at a home setup, you can still turn a nice profit. Um,
Totally. And again,
but
it also depends on your goal. Like I said, you know, there
yeah.
are people that just max it out and they like want to get as you know, they want to basically run at the largest scale possible and make money on
Mhm.
volume. And then there's people like me who want to stay in a certain leverage threshold where
Yep.
it's like, hey, I can afford this out of the income and it's an easy way to accumulate and I can slowly scale it up methodically. And then, you know, when you get windfalls in your life, as you will, and they happen, you know, you can adjust accordingly and take some bigger swings and then maybe go
Mhm.
buy a container or something like that. But I feel like hosted mining is kind of that gateway into the bigger league of all right, let's get a megawatt going, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Going into more of the psychological side of things, like what have your how much have your payouts swung over time? You said that your power rate hasn't been like no adjustments of anything crazy with how much you're having to pay in. But in like you said, you're not over leveraged. You can handle these monthly payments on the power bill if Bitcoin goes to zero and you were locked in. You're not struggling any. But what's that swing really look like?
It's really consistent. The biggest thing is in the price of Bitcoin. So basically, what I like about the pool is you open the dashboard and then they've got the price and then it maps how much every day. So you can see like, oh, the price of Bitcoin is going up. My machine is getting more profitable. Oh, the hash rate just changed and we had a difficulty adjustment jump down and, we just went down a couple of, we had a big swing down and then a big swing back up the last month. And it's like, you can literally see your profit jump and then go back down. So that was the one thing that I think surprised me about this was I didn't estimate the hash rate going up so fast. But again, the market, it's a market and it corrects. You get bubbles and hype and it pops and it drops and
we're already starting to see it.
Right. So it's been interesting because, I remember watching and I'm looking at the profitability and it's slowly going down over the year, but it's still doing great. Again, I'm still calculating future value. So I have a little table in my spreadsheet where I'm like, how much is, in sailor mode, what would this be? Okay, now in a medium forecast, what would this be? So I'm still sitting there looking at it. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm making like $200 a day less in future value, but I'm still making thousands a day.
Yeah.
So, that's the way my brain thinks because I'm just like, I don't care what the price is now. But again, that doesn't mean there's not a market condition where it's like, hey, it's really hitting a crazy all-time high. We've had like a blow off top or something. Maybe it's time to take some of this and go pay some bills or maybe go buy some new miners or something. So, there's some strategies there for sure. I know Scott has gone into detail, like how people will time the market with, different strategies. Some people even switch to mining certain altcoins at certain parts, but then take their payouts in Bitcoin and then flip their miner. Yeah, it gets wild.
Yeah, the altcoin mining, staying away from that is probably like the best and worst advice you could give. I mean, there's always the Caspa story, right? Where those things they went on, made their money back in a month, and then just kept making $100 a day for 5 months afterwards. It's like the first time I've seen one of those $20,000 shitcoin miners come out and actually hit their ROI. So normally I would say, hey, stay the hell away from it, and even then take your profits in Bitcoin. It's the safe, not financial advice, but I think it's your safest route if you're playing with risk like that. But that begs an interesting question. If you were starting from today, would you do anything differently? Are you happy with how you set everything up? What do you know now that you didn't know there that would alter kind of your course?
I might try a different host because I can get a better rate just from personal relationships from working in the industry now, where it's like, hey, you guys have referred us this and this and that, or helped us here or there. So, if you want to bring your personal stuff over here, we'll give you 7 cents or, so definitely I would leverage some of the relationships that I've made with some of these people and, but hey, one step at a time, right? I'm not moving my machines. I also think this is also important to think about in terms of like risk is like site risk. I don't like having all of my machines at one site. Like it pisses me off now that they're all in Iowa because I've learned that one snowstorm can knock out all your stuff. So I'm kind of like, well, maybe I should get something in Arkansas. Maybe I should get something in Texas. And I know Texas has got its own problems with wind and dust and dirt and, other things, but again,
it's pretty stable down there.
It's like, so every place has its own risk factors and you can diversify your machines across different hosts and things like that. Again, the problem is now it increases your bookkeeping and your record keeping and that's a pain in the butt, but I don't know, man. I like opening the spreadsheet every day and manually doing it. And most people would set up like a Claude bot or something to do that. But dude, it's fun. It's like playing a video game. Especially when you're staring at the future value numbers, because I remember sitting there with like my son and I'm explaining to him, and he's a 10-year-old kid, like I'm showing him how this works and I'm explaining future value because he's like really good at math. And then we're looking at the spreadsheet. I'm like, dude, check this out. So today we did this. And by the time you're my age, this and this and this and that. And like, just looking at the numbers, it's like, if I'm right, it's crazy to think about, what I mean?
You're going to be all right, kid. You can be
all right. Like the amount, I think about it like this, like the amount of Bitcoin I mined last year, which I mean, is not like a significant amount it was like 0.1 or something like that, maybe 0.12. But I'm like, dude, if I'm right, the future value of that could be like $2 million or something like that. And I'm thinking like, dude, that destroys anything else I did this year in terms of like, there's no activity that put $2 million in my pocket,
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
No,
crazy to think about that. Again, who knows what the numbers will actually be in say 20 years in terms of future value. And obviously there's inflation that will erode some of that, but just thinking about that as like a thought exercise. It's
no,
wild.
it is. It is. Yeah. It, yeah, if you have a long enough time horizon, it really does get pretty crazy pretty quickly, even just looking at 10 years out. And my whole thing, like when I'm just talking to what we call like normies, that like IRL people, it's just like, well, yeah, it's going to take 10 years. That might sound crazy to your average person, but it's like, you plan to be alive in 10 years?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you? It's like,
It goes like
unless
that,
you
dude.
plan on dying, it's just like, why not? Why not set yourself up good?
Where do you have kids, dude? I'm telling you, the time it's like at 2x's. It's like
Mhm.
if you're watching a YouTube video, you go to 1x and you hit the 2x button, and you're like a week's just go like that, and you're just like, man, when
Yeah.
I was a kid, it seemed like time moved slower. So 10 years literally can happen in like it feels like a few months sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not that long, and the decisions you make now really affect the decisions that will happen in 5 or 10 years. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, is it really makes you think long term. And it's
Mhm.
like, do I want to go to the bar tonight and hang out with my friends and buy a $20 drink at this concert, or do I want to take $20 and go buy a little bit more Bitcoin right now because the price is
Mhm.
65,000?
Yeah. No, 100%, man. 100%. Man, we're getting pretty close to the end here. Is there anything else specifically you wanted to touch on? We kind of hit most of our marks that we wanted to. We could go into a scaling strategy a little bit if you want to touch on that, on
Yeah,
how
I
you
mean, anything you want to hit. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but there's not like anything that's jumping to my mind. So I
Mm,
don't know, any questions or thoughts? Like, yeah, anything. Go ahead. What do you got?
man. So I mean, maybe just a good point of when those tax advantages come up at the end of the year, being able to move that into more machines, some of those longer holders, people that maybe don't have the as far of a time horizon as you're talking, maybe a 5 6 year, and they are planning on selling their Bitcoin at a
Yeah.
300-400K. It's like, well, even if you've been holding on to it all that time and you're in that 15-20% tax bracket, I mean, you're looking at an 80K tax bill if you're making 400. So it's like, why not dump all that into some machines? Um,
I mean, look
yeah.
at it like this. I like the adage: if it's not going to zero, it's going to a million. Really,
Yeah.
I know I like to quote Sailor, but I really do like Sailor, and I really think he's probably going to be, if he's right, he's going to be the next Buffett after Buffett's gone. People are going to
Yeah.
look at Sailor and they're going to be like, dude, he was so far ahead of the curve. Man, he's going to have like a million Bitcoin soon. Just think about how insane that is. But like, dude, no one's going to catch him. But like, if you think about it today, if it's not going to zero, I mean, even if it went to 20 grand, again, being a Bitcoiner, you see that we get excited when the market
Mhm.
goes down, which is hilarious because everybody's like on the internet. You can tell who the traders are and who are the
Yeah.
Bitcoiners, because the traders are like, oh my God, it's the end of the, I'm like, it's $65,000.
Mhm.
Be happy it's not 400, because I wouldn't want to buy Bitcoin at like a million or 400,000. Right
Right.
now I can still buy it. So for me, after a certain price, mining is almost the only way to get it cheap. Like
Mm.
having miners that from a couple of years ago that are still somewhat either profitable or functioning. It's like that's the only way you're going to get it at that price, or not you'd be paying 5x what you're paying now if you were to buy it. So that's something that really I think about a lot in terms of like scaling, is that if I can hold on to each one of these machines, and like, yeah, obviously they're going to suck in 2030, but
Mhm.
there might be a world where running those, you're still getting,
Some
an amount of Bitcoin where it's like the price is so high. I don't know if that makes sense
No.
mathematically, but
Yeah, no, there's definitely a time where I think that'll I'm curious to see like, how advanced the hardware is gonna get, how efficient, like, are we gonna get down to this, like, we're getting a terahash per watt? Like, are we ever gonna get a world that gets down that much?
that's
Um,
actually really interesting. If you think about like the home mining, like some of the guys that we've had on here, and it's just like
mhm,
you can get a couple of ASICs now and like a little home miner that runs, that is very low power cost. And
Yeah.
it's like you can do 8 terahash in your house
Mhm.
without like really noticing a power jump. You know, it's not like you're running 1200 watts. And like, think about that. Like, that's
I
crazy. Like, it's only going to get better.
It is, and I'm my kinda outlook on the future's changed a little bit when it comes to large scale mining, and I think there's gonna be less and less of these large scale players, and it's gonna dive more and more into just the single I'm sure here in 10 years, you'll be able to run 100 terahash for 10, 15 watts in your house, like it's nothing, but it's just gonna be setups like that stationed everywhere, a true decentralized network where everybody just kinda understands it's like that everybody will know somebody that's ran a home miner that's hit a block.
That's
You
crazy
do
to
it
think
at
about.
scale, and then there's those stories, and then it's like, well, if I could spend $400 right now just to have a shot at changing my life, because not even looking at the Bitcoin post having whatever, it's like if you can pull 150, 200K to any of your average American, it's like a life changing amount of money if used properly.
You
You
know,
know,
thinking about sovereignty, I have a friend that I want to bring on who I'm working on getting him here, but he goes by the name the Architect. He's like one of the sharpest dudes that I know. He does like estate planning and he's a CPA and he's like the ultimate generalist. He's like a strategist. And when you talk to this guy, we have these really long philosophical conversations about, and he will come on eventually, but
Mhm.
about sovereignty and like, so you think about that solar mining machine we were
Yeah.
talking about the other day, where it's just like you could literally take this thing into the middle of nowhere. I'm like, I could see a world where in 5 years somebody's got like, a portable little solar device that flips up. You're running a full node. You've got
Mhm.
a badass little miner on it that's pulling some decent terahash, and it's like you're just sitting there out in the forest in the middle of nowhere, mining, defending the network, running a node, verifying transactions, and you're just fishing, like,
Yep.
catching something, or, like, you know what I mean, on like a camping trip or something like that. Like
Yeah.
that is like peak sovereignty where you're just totally self-reliant. you know,
Yeah.
like you're
Yeah.
homesteading and you're just mining Bitcoin, you're doing it off, natural power, and
Mhm.
you're running a node off that. Like that's like I'd like to see a world like that where you're just like just a total sovereign individual, where you're just like you're mining your own Bitcoin, you're hosting your own node, you're doing it off, off grid, doing your thing. Like that's a crazy thing to think about as like a thought exercise.
It is. It really is. Though I think Bitcoin is truly changing the way the world will look. Truly, it's everybody's going to have their miners at home. It's going to be a staple in the living room. It's like, oh, cool. What is that then? What are you running? Like I can see that just being
I
yeah,
hope
being
you're right. I really do. I mean, you're 1 for 1 on the predictions. You said we were going to a bear. I'm like, oh, I don't know, man. 2026, you're going to see an increase in liquidity and this and this and that. And here we are. We're in a bear. And so far, I've been wrong. You've been right. And
that M2 global supply got everybody, man. It was real correlated there for a while.
dude,
It
yeah.
was.
I remember Raul Powell being like,
Yep.
he's like, what if it's this simple? I'm like, yeah, that makes a
Well,
lot of
I
sense.
do still really respect Raul Paul's like opinion on the whole business cycle changing and that extend leading to an extended cycle. The only thing that's like sucked in my head the whole time is like every time we get close to the end, everybody's talking about an extended cycle, like every single time.
Banana
And
zone.
it's this time is different, famous last words type of
Right.
deal. So the really if you just like overlay the 2021 chart with 2025, it was a no-brainer, but it was even looking at it then before everything happened, it was really hard to like come to acceptance with
You
that. I
know,
mean,
my
yeah.
brother lives and dies and by the charts. He's like a trader nerd, and like he would argue till he's blue in the face. Sometimes charts are right, sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes the thing about analysis and predictions is that you're always going to be right and you're always going to be wrong at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a matter of dates. Look at Peter Schiff. As much as I cannot stand Peter Schiff,
Mhm.
but right now he's having his little moment on his gold run, and he's been pounding the crap out of us. And but we've been dunking on him for 15 years. You know what I mean? So it's kind
Yeah.
of like you think about that. Well, everybody is going to be right eventually because there's a market condition where
Everything.
Bitcoin is at 1 million, crushing everything. And there's a market condition where right now where everybody's crying in their bedroom saying it's the end of Bitcoin, it's going to zero, we're all dead, we're all wrong, and that's it. And again, you look at the fear index is like almost at an all-time, the fear is like all the way. It's like people are terrified. And I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? Like I'm trying to find money in every little crack and corner of my thing. And again, that's why I'm happy I mine, because when you don't have dry powder, the miner makes it
still getting it. Yeah, no. So and like you're saying, last month you got those few weeks where difficulty went down by 14%. Those are opportunities that you would not have otherwise.
Too bad half my machines were broke.
Yeah. And really talk to them about some aftermarket firmware, man. Yeah, you should, just because you got one board broke or one fan, should still be running it. Be running it.
We'll see. I don't know. Again, every hosting opportunity is different. And that's why, again, you just pick up the phone, you call around, you make a decision, and then you have things you like and dislike, and you can call another host and be like, here's what I love about the host. Here's what I don't like about the host. What are you going to do different? And then see if they can. And again, I've liked everybody I've talked to. Overall, I think I've had a very positive opinion of the company I've hosted with, Musk. They've been great to work with, so they're very easy to talk to, and I like that.
Yeah, for sure. No, man, plenty of options. And overall, if you stay stateside, at least the industry is filled with mostly good people. So especially with these smaller like hosts, when you're sending a few miners in. But yeah, man,
more developed, like the darker, like in marketing we say black hat, like the shadier operators will get filtered out because
can't keep up, man. But yeah, I think we're good to kind of end things off here. It's great talking to you once again. Is there anything else you're wanting to touch on before we head out, though?
I mean, I would just pitch the Telegram groups again and say, if you want to go down the rabbit hole and learn more about mining, we have so many great resources at Bitcoin Mining World, from talking about mining container talk, ASIC miner discussion, there's miner repair. There's all these different chats that are pretty active where you can learn a ton about this stuff. And you should definitely hop on and go down those things. It doesn't cost you any money to sign up for Telegram. Make sure you hit Scott's deals. You can find all of the best stuff in the industry. Like there's so many things that are moving, especially in a market right now. There's a lot of stuff for sale that you can get killer deals on because again,
truly crazy.
Somebody else's pain is your opportunity. So, when you're positioned correctly, you can strike. Well, all right, Kalen, thank you, man. It's been fun. And we will see you next time on the Build a Mine podcast.
See you guys.